Welcome back. So today's topic will be lists. These constructs, they are replacement for if, then, and case statements, and list constructs process a series of commands one by one. We have two types of list constructs. You have and or lists. Basically, you would denote an and list with double ampersand sign, and for or list, you would just use the double pipe sign. So we'll see how the syntax looks like, how it works, and what happens. Anyway, between the or and lists, the syntax is pretty much the same, but the function is different. In and list, which will be the first list that we shall do here, commands are executed one after another, but only if the previous command returns true or zero. Now, what do I mean by this true or zero? So take a look at this example that I've pasted onto the screen here. And so this condition can either be true or false, okay? And then we go into the ampersand sign if it's true and proceed onwards with the next command. But echo is not true or false. Echo can return an exit status, or it can, or the exit status can be it can return a non-zero value as an exit status, or it can return a zero value as an exit status. Zero value indicating that it ran okay, smooth, without problems, and anything else than zero indicating that something went wrong. So that's what I mean by stating that this part either needs to be true or it needs to return a zero. Anyway, let's go ahead. If any of these, if this is like false, or if the exit status is not zero here, then it will not go and process, then the second condition will not be processed. The following condition will not be processed. That is, it will cut the condition there. So for example, if this is true, okay, let's go into this. But if this is false, it will not go into this, and so on. So let's take a look at how this example works. Basically, this checks for the first parameter, and we are reversing it with the exclamation mark, so with the negation. And we are checking if the parameter is passed to the script. If the parameter is passed to the script, then this condition evaluates to true, and we go on to the next parameter here, and then the next, and then the next, and so on and so forth. If all commands in the AND list that you see here above, return true, then the following will be executed. So basically the echo will be printed out onto the screen. If any of the commands in the AND list return false, then this down below will be executed and basically will tell the user, whoever that might be, what the proper usage of the script is. So let's go ahead and just run it. First.sh. It gives me usage because it is expecting two parameters to be passed. So the first parameter can be 1 and the other can be 2. And there you go. It says first parameter 1, second parameter is 2. Two parameters are passed to the script. So it just does the checks. I don't really care much for this example as it is nothing special. There's nothing really new that you're going to see in it, including these conditions. But what I want to state here is the AND list and how it works, how there's a list of conditions that are bind together with an ampersand sign, and how it actually functions. Okay, so let's just go ahead and delete this. There is something called the OR lists as well, which function in a fairly different way than this. I have a short example here. I'm feeling a bit lazy today and don't really feel like writing it down. There we go. So you see how the OR list actually functions from the example. In the OR list, commands are executed one after another, but only if the previous command returns false or some non-zero value, so the complete opposite of the AND list. So if the return value is true or zero, then the execution of the command is pretty much terminated. Note, just keep it in mind that the last command that is executed is that which returned true. So we have a bit of an example here. Nothing terribly complicated. Just a series of conditions. So condition, and then we have a command. Basically, it checks for the first argument. It checks if it's a regular file, if it's a file, and then it basically just removes. So if it's passed and if it exists, then it is removed, no big deal. Fairly fast, no big deal. There, it should work without any sort of problems. Anyway, let's go ahead and run it and see what happens. Okay, let's just go ahead and do this. First.sh wood.txt. Okay, so we all know that wood.txt does exist indeed, so I'm not gonna do the ls, but here. And it says removed, since all the conditions went through. But now wood.txt does not exist, so let's just rerun the same script with the same command. There we go, nothing is printed out because there is nothing to do. So this condition needs to evaluate to false, and then we go into OR. And then this condition needs to evaluate to false, and then we go to OR. The exit status of this command needs to be non-integer value in order for this to actually move on, and so on and so forth. If any of these return true or have the return value of a 0, then this code will not proceed onwards. It's not going to happen. So once again, these conditions here are not terribly important. I just wanted to state what happens here. It needs to be false or a non-zero integer in order for it to continue, unlike the AND list, which actually requires it to be true, and it requires the return value to be 0 in order to proceed onwards. So there's just one more smaller example which I can print out here, and that was the end of the wood.txt file that I have dragged on for quite a while. Now it is gone, unfortunately. Perhaps we can bring it back to life at some other point of time. But for the time being, I'll leave it as it is. Okay, so yet again we have another, perhaps more simple set of conditions. We have A, B, C, and value of A is greater than the value of B. Is the value of A greater than the value of B? Of course not. 1 is not greater than 2. So this is false. Excellent. So that means, in accordance with the definition of the OR list, we will continue on into the next one. Is B greater than C? The value of B is definitely not greater than C. So this is false. And then we go into the final stage where we state that C is equal to C plus A plus B. That's what this plus equal sign means. I have explained this plenty of times in the previous tutorials. So C shall be equal to the combined value of all three variables, meaning that's like 4, 7. Okay, so that would be 7, right? No, it's 6. How did I add this to be 7? I've seen B as 3. Well, so much for my math skills. I mean, seriously. But hey, but look at this. What if I was to replace B with C, with C, and C with B? What do you think happens here? Well, is C greater than B? C is definitely greater than B, so 3 is greater than 2, meaning that this will return true, meaning that this will not happen. So let's take a look. And there you go. Nothing happens. It doesn't proceed on with the conditions or anything like that. That would be it as far as the lists are concerned. It's a fairly short thing it's a fairly short subchapter, however you wish to refer to it, and fairly simple. Just use ampersand signs and double pipe signs. One goes through if the return values are 0 and true. That would be the AND list, and the OR list basically just keeps on going if the return value is non-zero integer or if the condition is actually false. Thank you for investing your time. Thank you for watching this video, and I bid you farewell.